Time now for Back Pages Tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in this morning's papers. And joining us are Henry Winter from Sports Illustrated and The Telegraph's Jason Burt. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run you through, though, the back pages. Now we're going to start with the Eye and Nottingham Forest 2-0 win at home to Porto is the main feature in the Eye, with the headline Dyche is back. Now the Telegraph say the Dyche is right after Nottingham Forest made a great start under their new head coach, plus quotes from Marcus Rashford indicating he wants to make his Barcelona loan permanent. Now the Metro reports on Liverpool captain Virgil van Dijk calling a player-only meeting following Sunday's defeat to Manchester United. That's covered in multiple papers. The Star also report on that Van Dijk story, and they go with the headline Blue Moon after Erling Haaland revealed through his new YouTube channel that he consumes raw milk and steak. Haaland also features on the back page of The Sun. Their headline is There's a title at stake. And more Forest on the back of the Express, plus a story on how Joshua Zirkzee will ask to leave Manchester United in January. We're going to start, though, with the Eye and reaction to Sean Dyche being back. We're going to see the headline there. Dyche is back, and he kickstart his time as Nottingham Forest head coach with victory over Porto in the Europa League. A 2-0 victory on the night. 2 penalties got them there in the end, but a very positive result for him at Forest. Gentlemen, great to see you. Henry, let's just start with you, only because you're on my left side, so Jason, please don't be offended. Henry, look, perfect start for Sean Dyche, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And to be honest, not a huge surprise, because what Nottingham Forest have needed is someone who was going to go in there, who's going to reconnect with the fans, who obviously has got the connection with Forest from his youth team days, and organise the defence. It was no surprise reading some of the reports in Jason's paper and elsewhere that Milenkovic and Murillo look far more like their old Nuno selves rather than their sort of slightly cat on a hot tin roof selves under Postecoglou. It was interesting that, you know, there's been so much focus on what type of football does Sean Dyche play. Well, Elliot Anderson had, I think it was 88 passes tonight. Morgan Gibbs-White looked like he was expressing himself even more. And Dyche was talking afterwards that he wanted to take away some of the defensive responsibilities of Gibbs-White and let this fantastic flair player express himself even more. So, look, they will go direct at times. The defence will be incredibly organised. They'll be stronger at set pieces, which is what Sean Dyche does. But also he is allowing them a little bit off the leash at times.
Yeah, Jason, in your paper, the Dyche is right. Look, it's easy to jump to conclusion after just one game to go, yes, spot on, Forest have got it spot on. But are there early signs that you can see that this just fits better than perhaps Ange Postecoglou did?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair comment, really. Obviously, for Sean Dyche to win his first game in charge, with it being a big European game, the first game Forest have won in Europe for almost 3 decades as well. It's just such a big moment to change the atmosphere around the club and the fans inside the stadium. You saw the reaction post-match. There was a really telling comment from Morgan Gibbs-White where he said that it's allowing them to breathe again. Now, that's damning for Ange Postecoglou, but also reflects probably the pressure in which they were under, having gone so long without a win, and how claustrophobic that can feel to players and how inhibiting it can feel. So to get that win with your first game, it, you know, as that famous sort of Jurgen Klopp phrase was, you know, to turn doubters into believers. Well, he's doing that from day one. And it's probably what we expected as well. I think sometimes with managers, it just doesn't work. It never looked like it was ever going to work with Ange Postecoglou. From the get-go, it looked like the wrong fit. With Sean Dyche, once that appointment was made, you're thinking, OK, that makes a lot more sense. And I'm a lot more sort of in keeping with what Forest have been like in the last few years playing under Nuno. And I think he will get them back. And I think he'll be highly motivated as well. And this will mean an awful lot to him. And also, it's probably the best squad of players he's ever worked with. He's got a fantastic opportunity. He's got some brilliant players in there, as Henry mentions, Elliot Anderson, Morgan Gibbs-White himself. You know, it is a really good squad of players, and they really have started hit the ground running.
Yeah, I think looking at the game, you could see the crowd, Henry, just seemed different compared to when Ange Postecoglou was in the dugout. Look, before even Ange's appointment, Nottingham Forest were favourites to win Europa League. A seventh place finish in the Premier League will do that for you. Now that Sean Dyche is in charge, can you see that favourite tag kind of lasting a bit longer now?
Well, you just look at the players they've got. I mean, they had two of them, Sells and Wood, in the PFA Team of the Year. They were in fairly illustrious companies with sort of Liverpool players in there. So absolutely, as Jason says, they've got good players. And he's calmed the situation. I mean, press conferences, he's gone in there and he's not talked about his sort of previous clubs as Postecoglou did. He's sort of talked up Forest. He talked up the players, the atmosphere as well. The fans reacted. The fans didn't want Postecoglou. The majority of them didn't want Postecoglou from the start. They were always going to give Sean Dyche a warm welcome because he wasn't Postecoglou, but also because of those connections. Can they win the Europa League? Well, absolutely. Why not? They've got some fantastic players.
They've got a great chance, and they've certainly helped themselves tonight with a 2-0 victory against Porto. Let's have a look at another story now that's making the back pages this morning. That is Virgil van Dijk. And on the back of the Metro, it says, "Crisis. What crisis?" And this follows the captain who called a players' meeting following their defeat to Manchester United on Sunday. Now, he's insisted that it wasn't a crisis summit, but he did admit that the mood was pretty low, Jason, after the defeat. Is this what we should expect from a leader and a captain, certainly of a figure of Van Dijk's quality as well?
No, absolutely. It's good captaincy. It's good leadership to call that meeting and not to have the manager involved. Obviously, it would have been Arne Slot would probably been quite pleased they've done that, really, so they can try and sort out a few of the things themselves, clear the air a little bit, say what they think without the manager being there, be frank with each other, have an exchange of views. We know that Van Dijk himself is never short of an opinion and obviously speaks his own mind, which is welcome as well, because he's the captain of a club as great as Liverpool and he should be able to do that. So I think it's a really healthy situation, actually, and especially if you follow it up with a 5-1 win. That sort of stops all that crisis talk straight away. But it was lurching towards a bit of a crisis, a mini crisis, certainly, 4 defeats in a row. I know Van Dijk tiptoed around these words saying, well, it wasn't a crisis, but actually, obviously, we lost 4 games in a row. So therefore, it was going in the wrong direction. So we were heading towards a crisis. But anyway, whether it's a crisis or not, they've got the right result, and it seems to me like a very good move by him to firstly hold that meeting and then also make it public as well, that the players have taken it on board. They've taken the responsibility, because sometimes, especially in football, we focus so much on the manager and what he's done and his tactics, his team selections, but the players themselves have to look in the mirror and take responsibility themselves. And I think it's been good that Van Dijk's put that out there and let everyone know that meeting's taking place.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think so often it's finger pointing to the managers, and yet the players seem to get let scot-free. Henry, you've written a piece in Sports Illustrated. We're sticking with the Liverpool theme around Mo Salah. Now, I was a little bit concerned that you were going to start singing some Aretha Franklin with R-E-S-P-E-C-T to start off. But look, does Mo Salah need a bit more respect? 33 years old, for what he's achieved in the game. He's just going through a bit of a dip.
Well, first is the Football Writers' reigning Footballer of the Year. He's the Players' Player of the Year. He came fourth in the Ballon d'Or. He's won 2 titles, a Champions League, 1 FA Cup, 2 League Cups. I mean, there's a huge list of trophies that he's won for Liverpool in these great games. And this piece that I've written echoes one that I think it's Chris Bascom in the Telegraph has written as well. Is there almost an element of Florian Wirtz, who's 22, to Salah's 33? At some point, it will take over almost the conductor role. Obviously, different player, different position and all that. But in terms of a lot of the football flowing through him, I thought we saw... Look, I'm a big Florian Wirtz fan, and he showed it yesterday. Okay, it was back in Germany. A lot of people are saying, well, he likes that sort of game and that sort of tempo. But there's a very special player in there, as Jurgen Klopp and Philipp Lahm have been talking about when he was getting criticised. So look, 2 assists, doesn't make him Kenny Dalglish or one of the the most important players in Liverpool's history, but it does show that they've got this talent has come in. And, you know, we throw the word crisis around far too freely. I mean, they spent, what, £420 million? And obviously they recouped a lot of that as well. But, you know, that's not a crisis. They've got a potentially a very good jigsaw there. It's just a question of getting the sort of the pieces in the right order. And the point that Basco's making in the Telegraph and I was doing in Sports Illustrated is at some point there's huge respect for Mo Salah for what he has achieved. But you can't have sinecures in football. And if he needs to be on the bench, as he was last night, or he needs to sort of, you know, in the future, well, then that's competition. That is elite sport. And Arne Slot knows so much about the game and will know, you know, he's made tough decisions before. We saw it in his first ever game for Liverpool when he hooked Kwanzaa at half time. So he will make strong decisions. But I do think, you're coming back to your first point, there has to be respect for Mo Salah for what he has achieved. And he's a fantastic role model. I mean, Jason rightly makes the point about Virgil van Dijk in this meeting. That Liverpool team, and this is why I would question the crisis headline, is full of international captains. You've got Szoboszlai with Hungary, you've got Mo Salah obviously with Egypt, Endo with Japan, Andy Robertson with Scotland. Potentially you've got half the team who are international leaders. So I don't think it's a crisis just yet.
Not yet, Jason. Well, look, Henry alluded to the fact that Arne Slot made a brave decision to bench Mo Salah, something we don't see very often. It's a player who likes to play games, he likes to start games, he doesn't ever want to rest, it seems. But has he got a tricky decision to make before Brentford on the weekend of whether to keep him on the bench after such an emphatic performance in Germany in midweek?
Yeah, I think there was an awful lot of sense in benching him against Eintracht Frankfurt. I think if he stays on the bench, or he starts on the bench again on the weekend, then that starts to look a little bit more concerning for him. Although obviously we've got a huge long season ahead of us, and he is not getting any younger as an older player in the squad. I do think there is one issue with Salah, which I do find quite fascinating, that Liverpool are trying to play a little bit differently this season, and he hasn't got the runners around him that he did have in previous seasons. He hasn't got the players who are doing the running for him effectively. And I think that Chelsea game, actually, when they got beat recently before the international break, was quite alarming in that he was actually targeted. The defensive space behind him was where Chelsea really found all their joy. And I think that teams will look at that and think, as great as Mo Salah is, we know he doesn't track back. We know he hasn't had to track back in the past because he's had midfield players and other forwards as well who've covered that distance for him. It's not going to happen so much with Ekitike or with Isak. They're not those sorts of players. So I think it's going to be quite interesting how Arne Slot finds a solution to that conundrum. And if he is on the bench on the weekend, then obviously people will be talking more and more about whether or not he's actually going to be an automatic choice for the team.
Yeah, interesting point. Gentlemen, thank you very much. That's part one already complete. But we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning papers, including this in the Sun. There's a title at stake. Hey, watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to Henry Winter from Sports Illustrated and the Telegraph's Jason Burt. Let's now go to your paper, Jason, the Telegraph, and we're going to have a look at a story around Marcus Rashford. Rashford eyes Barcelona stay, and it says the on loan Manchester United man lifted by new environment and culture that he seems to be experiencing in Spain. I'm sure he's enjoying the weather, that's for sure, Jason. But look, talk to me about Rashford. He seems to have got a new leash of life in Spain, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I think key to it is that new environment. Obviously, he's playing for Barcelona, a club he really, really wanted to play for and has talked about playing for quite some time, actually, if he was ever going to leave Manchester United. But actually, I think this has been a great move for him, a really fantastic move. It's brilliant to see him thriving. He's got everything, Marcus Rashford. He could be a fantastic player. Well, he is a fantastic player, but he can obviously recapture that form and be great again. But I think the change of environment is the key here. And he talks in the piece about how he's been associated with Manchester United all his life, basically. And sometimes that pressure is just too much. And I think he obviously needed a change of environment to get out of Manchester, not just Manchester United, but maybe Manchester the city as well, and move somewhere else. He's had an awful lot of responsibility on his shoulders ever since he broke into the team, and even before that when people were talking about him. And I think he's carried that on his shoulders all his life, and it's been a bit of a heavy weight, and at times it's dragged him down. And I think actually for his own well-being and his own form and his own career. He needed to leave Manchester United. I think United fans will be angry and upset by that, but actually sometimes it has to happen because it can be too much. He was the local hero, he was the local boy, and it was a situation where I think he was dragging him down, really. And I think the move has been great for him. I think it will be made permanent. It's only going to be about £26 million, which will be a bargain fee. But I think for Manchester United, they probably just want to make it happen now as well.
Now, Henry, look, I know you know the player very well. We had that famous interview with him. But as Jason said, the fee might be just £26 million. That just seems an absolute bargain for Barcelona. Does it seem like bad business from Manchester United's perspective?
No, because Manchester United want him out. So I don't think there's any sort of particular sort of issue. He doesn't fit in with the way Ruben Amorim wants to play in that 3-4-3 system. I think maybe it's wages. There were too many issues, and I think he needed to leave. I think he also needed to leave the country, as Jason says, experience another culture, and just enjoy playing again. I mean, the plan at Barcelona, and Hansi Flick has been a long-term admirer of Rashford, was to him to sort of slightly ease him in, but then they had injuries in the attacking third and they've had to rely on him. I mean, he's already played 12 games, 5 goals, 5 assists. So he's absolutely flying again. And of course, we have to view everything through the prism of this is a World Cup year, and a lot of players have got that in mind, particularly when you're a player he's 26. This is a big World Cup for him. And I think he's shown he's probably number 2 to Anthony Gordon on England's left as a starter. He can understudy Harry Kane in the middle. So, look, this is a very exciting time. But anyone who knows Marcus Rashford knows that if he's feeling supported, he will absolutely deliver. And whether that's supported by people within the club, but particularly in the dugout. He obviously didn't have that with Amorim. That was an issue on both sides there. But with Hansi Flick backing him through word and deed, it's no surprise that he's flying.
Yeah, in the article he said he confirms that he'd held talks previously with Barcelona, and when asked whether he wanted to stay beyond this season, he said, "Oh yeah, for sure." Well, that's one player who wants to leave. There's another Manchester United who seems to want a way out of Old Trafford, and that's Joshua Zirkzee. This is at the back page of the Express. Third time lucky, flop Josh, I'll see you later. Interesting line. He's kind of fallen down the pecking order. He's been at the club for over a year now, Jason. Is this just a natural progression? They've brought in Benjamin Sesko. Ruben Amorim kind of put his standpoint on the team, the players he wants. If you're not up to scratch, there's the door. He's happy for you to go. And the player seemingly wants to just desperately play games, but he's really fallen out of favour.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised if he doesn't leave in the January window for a couple of reasons. One, it's a World Cup year, as Henry mentions. He wants the chance, obviously, to be in the Dutch squad and play for Holland. We know Ronald Koeman's very tough on players who don't appear for their club. So that'll be in his mind for a start. And secondly, I think Manchester United only really held on to him for the first half of the season just to make sure things worked out with other players. It's quite surprising in some ways because the system that Amorim plays, you think he would probably fit into that because he's not a 9. He's not a 10, he's like a 9.5. And he likes to play in that sort of space just behind the main striker. But it's never really worked out for him at Manchester United. And as you say, once those summer signings were made, that reshaped strike force, he was always only going to be on the bench. And it's quite a luxury player to have on the bench in terms of what they paid for him and the wages and so on. So I think in terms of balancing it out, in terms of his own career, in terms of Manchester United going forward, and also with Mason Mount being fit and playing at the moment, he's fallen even further down the pecking order. I'll be very surprised if he's still there after the January window.
Yeah, one to watch in January, that is for sure. Now, we're just going to get on to a serious story about Erling Haaland and his form and how well he's playing right now. But, Henry, one for you. Back page of the start says Blue Moon. He's got a diet of raw milk and steak. Raw milk and steak, Henry, is that one for you?
I mean, it's so impressive, isn't it? I mean, the Telegraph and a couple of other papers have gone through, this is on his YouTube channel, and he's very relaxed and he's sort of talking about basically what makes him such an exceptional player, and the attention to detail, as James Ducker in the Telegraph has gone through, is absolutely fascinating. I mean, an element of it we would expect from him of sort of saunas and ice baths, but just this attention to detail. I mean, a lot of it is absolutely jaw-dropping detail. He has 6,000 calories a day. He doesn't use a knife and fork. It's all sort of finger food, even with these huge tomahawk steaks. But it's great because he comes over as a really nice, sort of grounded guy, if you can be at such an amazing Premier League footballer and an athlete. But just sort of wandering into the local farm shop and chatting to the lady there, buying some milk and the steaks. And he said, this is so good. This is, one of the reasons why I am such an athlete. He has to thank genetics as well. I mean, his dad obviously was a player. His mum was a heptathlete. He actually says in Ducker's piece that even his grandmother was quick over, I don't know what sort of distance, but so he's obviously got it in the genes. But little things like, just sort of chatting away with the lady who runs the local dairy, saying, he's going to go back and help milk the cows. So absolutely breaking moves from Fleet Street, and he is the cream of the crop.
He is. I like the fact you avoided the question of the raw milk, Henry. Jason, look, we're seeing so many different sports stars actually have their YouTube channels, the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo springs to mind. He's got 75 million followers or something. I think Bryson DeChambeau in golf giving a real insight. Erling Haaland's doing it himself. But look, on the back page of the Sun, there's a title at stake. This is great, an insight into a player, but the seriousness of his preparation, as Henry was saying, is really showing into full fruition, isn't it, with his form on the pitch right now?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've actually interviewed Erling a couple of times, and we went into quite detail then about some of the preparations he made, and they were quite astonishing. He will try absolutely everything. To a degree, it's quite interesting that he's revealing this, because even when I spoke to him before, he was like, well, I'll only tell you so much. I'm not telling you everything I do, but he's going a bit further now. He's also taken control of his media profile by having his own YouTube channel. I think that is part of his development as a player and a personality. And we just show the lengths he goes to, as you say, to want to be the very, very best he can possibly be. It's also very, very good as well as an insight for children to see what good nutrition means. The players, we talk about players being fit and running around and all that, but really it's about food. And if you eat the right food, you'll have a healthy body. And I think it's quite good that he's also setting that example to kids as well. Not that everyone can afford steak and so on. I do also find it quite funny as well that we're talking about steak and milk and, nutrition 10, 20, 30 years ago when footballers were needed to build themselves up. That's exactly what they were prescribed. Have some milk, have some steak, a bit of Guinness maybe he doesn't have that as well. But I think it's a fascinating insight and a welcome addition, really, in that he's decided to do this and give an insight into how he behaves and what he does.
Yeah, it's great for the fans. And Henry, look, if Erling Haaland stays fit, he's working hard to do that with his diet and his preparation, as he's showing everybody. You've got about 30 seconds, Henry, but let us know, if they do stay fit, can Man City really challenge for the Premier League title this season?
Yeah, absolutely, because they've got Pep Guardiola. They've got an outstanding goalkeeper in Donnarumma. They've got John Stones back in form. Phil Foden has regained his sharpness. And you've got Erling Haaland absolutely flying on 6,000 calories a day. Do you eat 6,000 calories a day, Henry? Oh, well, yeah, easily at university. Yeah, probably more. but I didn't have his workload.
Brilliant stuff. Right, thank you so much, Henry Winter, Jason Burt, much appreciated. And if you missed any of the show, there's another chance to see Back Pages tonight at 1:30. And the show is also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. And we're back again tomorrow night. So you can join us with our guests, who will be Mark Ogden and Ian Ladyman.